We hold on to the hope that God is with us, and that this is not God's way, and that God comes to rescue us and to show us to a new way. I sense that we're in a crisis time in our nation and in the world. And if it's a crisis time, that also means it's a decision time. A crisis always means there's a decision to be made. I was remembering again this last week that the English word crisis actually comes from a Greek word that means to make a decision. It's time to make a decision. A crisis says to us, above all, it says you need to decide. You're heading along this path. Are you going to keep on that path, or in light of the crisis, are you going to decide to take a different path? And I think that the crisis that we face, there's all the very important questions that are on the surface about the economy, about violence, and what do we do, and all that. But at the basic root of it, the real decision is this. Are we going to live as people of hope or as people of fear? The decision is which will we choose? Which will we choose for ourselves? Hope or fear? Most of the time, when we think about hope and fear, we think of them as feelings, and they are. And we think about them, those feelings just coming on us depending on what's going on. And we say, well, how can we control that? We can't stop feeling hope or fear in situations. And that's absolutely true. But at a certain point, hope or fear becomes a choice. At a certain point, it becomes a choice. We have before us God's light and God's power and God's invitation to us. We have that. And we also have before us the violence and the suspicion and the hatred and the fear that brings. And then we have to decide which way will we go. Which power will it be that controls our life and shapes our life from that point? What's our choice? Will we live as people of hope, or will we live trapped and encapsulated in our fear? And that is the choice before us. John the Baptist came in our gospel lesson today, giving that same choice to the people that came out to the wilderness to listen to him. John the Baptist says, you have a choice too. You have a choice to go with God or to go with fear, to go with hope or to go with the same old pattern, the same old way you've been living your life up till now. Remember when John the Baptist was here last week, we heard him saying, prepare the way of the Lord. God is going to cut the highway for you through the mountains, through the desert. God is going to come, and if you feel like you're being weighed down by pressure, if you feel like you're being weighed down by fears, by violence, if life is just too heavy, God is going to cut a path for you through the mountains. And John the Baptist comes back this week and says, but now you have a choice to make. God cuts that path of hope and light. The choice is, are you going to take that path, or are you just going to continue on the old way? Well, all the people who were listening to him said, of course, John, of course we want to take that path of hope. We want to live as God's people. What then shall we do? What then shall we do? How do we actually live that out? And John then gives them some nice specific instructions about how each moment of the day to live with compassion, honesty, and justice. He says, if you want to live as God's people of hope, if you really want to stake your lives on God and really follow God's life, you're going to live as people of compassion, honesty, and justice. This is how he specifically says it. When the people said to him, what then should we do? John says, anyone who has 2 coats should share with the one who has none. And anyone who has food should do the same. If in a confusing and chaotic world we choose to live by hope in God's light, then one of the things we're going to decide to do is to live with generosity, to live with compassion. And then the tax collectors come to John and say, well, what should we do? Now, what you need to know is that tax collectors in John's day regularly charged people more taxes, collected more taxes than they should have just to augment their own income. And so John says to them, don't collect any more than you're required to. We're going to live as people of hope, and we're not going to be grabbing from each other. We're going to do what's honest. And then the soldiers come up to John and say, John, what should we do? These were probably King Herod's soldiers. King Herod's soldiers were well known for using their armed might to steal from people, to force people to be servants to them. What should we do? And John says to them, don't extort money with threats and don't accuse people falsely. Be content with your pay. compassion, honesty, justice. If we choose to live as people of hope, then we will also decide to live by God's grace, to follow God's way revealed to us through Jesus Christ, to live in the world in the hope of what God is doing in our midst, and the confidence of what God is doing in our midst, rather than being controlled by the powers around us. Now, I know that all of us also want to live as people of hope. The hopelessness we sometimes feel is just too exhausting, and we also are committed to following Jesus, and we're committed to following God's way. We certainly want to live as people of hope, but sometimes it just seems too overwhelming. Sometimes with the things that happen around us, hope just seems to die sometimes. So what can we do about that? It's too much to handle by ourselves. And that's right, it is too much to handle by ourselves. And so to give us the strength that it needs to live as people of hope, to actually make that choice, to live by hope, God gives us two gifts that show up in our text today. I'll call them the gift of fire and family. John the Baptist was said to the people as he went on, he says, I baptize you with water, but one is coming after me, namely Jesus, who will baptize you with the Holy Spirit and with fire. Fire is the sign of the presence of God. Christ comes to give us fire. Christ comes not just on Christmas cards or on Christmas carols. Christ comes to be born in us as we struggle to live in the world, as we wonder how we're going to be hopeful, how we're going to do what's right. Christ comes to live in us. Christ comes to stir up the fire of God's presence in us. And so suddenly we find the strength to do what we're wanting to do. And so what I would suggest for all of us in these days ahead, when a moment comes in which we are feeling hopeless, when a moment comes when we're feeling exhausted, either because of what's going on in the world or because of the very real situations in our own lives as we face times of sickness or as we face times of turmoil, whenever it is that when we just don't know what to do and we feel like we just don't have the strength, then say a prayer. Just say, God, please give me your spirit. I need some of your fire right now. That's the prayer. God, please give me your spirit right now and enable me to live as a child of hope. And secondly, God not only gives us fire through the presence of Christ in us, God gives us family. We've been enjoying seeing the journey of Joseph and Mary towards Bethlehem. To have Jesus be born there. And we speak of them as the Holy Family. Even Jesus needed a family to be a part of. We need a family. We need our own house family. We need a church family. We need a national family. Because life is just too hard on our own. Which one of us can make it just traveling on our own? Life is just too complicated. And so God gives us a family. As Jesus grew up, he had his own family, Joseph and Mary, and then they went on to have brothers and sisters. But as Jesus did his ministry, he gathered more and more people, and they were also part of the family. They were part of God's family. Until finally Jesus had gathered everybody into God's family. And so in these very complicated times, we need to be able to receive the family that God has given us. And we need to be able to draw together as family. Because as I said, life is too complicated to figure out. It's too difficult to do it on our own. We need to gather together as family, as people, as a nation. And then with family, with sisters and brothers around us who can encourage us and we can share our wisdom. We can sit down. We can begin to talk to each other. How are we going to best care for our children? How are we going to do the best job of parenting? How will we take care of those who are mentally distraught or even mentally ill and sitting on the edge of hopelessness and violence? How will we manage the difficult problems? How will we find work for people? How will we find shelter for people? How will we be able to learn how to best use guns to protect us and how to best keep ourselves safe from guns at the same time? Difficult problems and questions. And we do it best when we gather together as family and support one another in that process. That is finally the source of our hope, the source of our presence. By ourselves, we could never manage it. But with God,